I just did. Okay. And we're live. Hey everybody, Ben here from DMC Films and Cinderblock Studios, and welcome to Cinderblock Studios Live, episode 008, Why Art History Matters. I'm Ben Yockel, and this is my studio. I'm an artist living and working north of Pittsburgh, PA in the United States, and I am joined this evening by longtime Cinderblock Studios Live guest, Lucas, if you would like to introduce yourself and anything else you would like to say.
Hello, I am Lucas. I am on Christmas vacation and I'm living it, and I finished all my shopping today. And I just really have to figure out how to wrap a Charizard doll and make it look nice.
You put it in an extremely large box so nobody knows what it is, and then they open it, it's a tiny little thing in a big giant box.
What I like to do actually, and we're getting it off topic like super fast, I like to put boxes in boxes in boxes, but that's so time consuming.
It is.
But it's
really
fine.
is. So, tonight's topic, why art history matters. There seems to be a lot of things I've noticed recently about artists not paying attention to what's happened in the past, and it's like this, and I can't go to a museum because I'm too busy about this and that and the other thing, and it just takes forever, and can't you just show me the images? And we're kind of lost in this era of being able to access our images so quickly with sites like DeviantArt. Not that I'm hating on DeviantArt, at least not today.
And it's new minty freshness.
Right. Minty freshness?
That's how it makes me feel. It makes me want to brush my teeth a lot.
It's not that. It would need more blue to be minty.
Just saying.
Oh yes, I should also probably talk about what I'm working on tonight before we start diving in too far into the topic. I am currently working on a piece entitled I don't remember what it is. Memories of a Recent Past. You can find the digital concept for this piece on my DeviantArt page. It's cinderblockstudios.deviantart.com. I think there might be a version of it up on my regular website, cinderblockstudios.com, and so you can check it out there if you need a little hint on what I'm working on. If not, you can enjoy the process as I do. Okay, I've got a message to check on.
Oh, I'll be checking the comments, by the way, Ben, just so you know.
Yes, there's I set it up right now, so we actually have a live chat over on the YouTube watch page.
Yay!
So, I figured it out after a hangout with Merrill the last time. He said he'll probably join in a little bit later. I said might join in. I shouldn't say probably. He's finishing up a video, so he might be in a little bit later to offer his wisdom as an actual or trained art teacher. So we'll have to see. See, now I have to type, and I totally lost my train of thought. Okay. So our topic tonight is art history. Okay, I did the whole introduction already, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. Okay, so let's look at my list, my funny list that I always print out ahead of time and then forget about and get lost of track from. Because yeah, those are words, and that makes a sentence, right?
It depends how they're arranged, but generally they do.
So I think the first thing that's important to kind of talk about when you talk about art history is the history of what makes art and a piece of art good. Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, good's a relative term, and it's sort of subjective to how we like, different people and different tastes, and you can say that all you want, but at the end of the day, there is still kind of a base standard for, okay, that is a good piece of art. Different styles can be different. You can like a style, you can hate a style, and I mean, I personally don't like Impressionism. but that doesn't mean that whoops, knocking my brushes over. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it as a movement in art history and a movement in terms of uh, how relative it is to the uh, to art that's made today, as well as and how it kind of influenced artists and continues to influence artists today. So there is, I mean, I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the month with my blog post over on the site called "What Is Art," because there in a lot of ways should be sort of a some sort of base standard for what society, in terms of like global society as well as individual societies, have decided what can be defined as art and what can be defined as good art. I actually would like to hear your opinions on this, Lucas, on sort of just your thoughts on like is there anything out there where you could say, okay, that's bad art, even though somebody has else sort of deemed it to be rather good.
Um, I wouldn't say that necessarily it's bad art, but like I do get irritated when people upload images on DeviantArt and like it's very sloppy and they didn't even like when I say sloppy I mean like they did like a few scribbles and like they did it on line paper and some art done on line paper can be
Over.
very well done but like it just irritates me a lot because like come on there's like paper they sell.
Right. But that's also a level of craftsmanship and not about the work itself. Um, so it's like are you going to be judging like it's like is craftsmanship a big enough part of what makes art good, or can there be something that's made with like the cheapest materials possible and still be considered as equal to something as well known as something like the Mona Lisa?
Um, well, this is something I've said in a past show that you've I've kind of moved away from because I still kind of use a lot of cheap paint and I produce some pretty pictures of that cheap paint, but I'm kind of moving on. But I still believe that as long as it looks nice and it looks pretty, it'll be nice. But literally I've seen some pretty bad art on DeviantArt. It just so happens to be on line paper.
Yeah, I mean, and at the same time, you're going to get like, and it's that idea of just because you have nice materials doesn't mean your art's going to be great. Like, there's can be really bad art made with some really nice materials, and but
And we
kind
will
of take.
find those people and hit them in the face for making bad art with expensive golden paint.
Oh man, no, we won't do that. Um, but it probably should still be noted though that using like you can make great art without having the best materials, and you know it's like the materials don't dictate the artist, and I kind of said this over and over again in the live shows before. But
Hmm.
at the same time, it's like how you use them, and that kind of goes back to the whole to the thing about craftsmanship. How you use them is going to also determine uh, exactly how far you're going to take. I'm starting to lose my train of thought. I have to look at my sheet. So anyway, the whole thing I was trying to come back to is making art good. So like we're talking about things like materials and craftsmanship, um, but at the same time, it's like, is it style? Is it how it's made, or is it you're looking at something closer to uh, you just don't like something for whatever reason? And so
Yeah.
it's like is the real question is outside of your own opinion about something. It's like so he's like, okay, I don't like things on line paper, but outside of that opinion on not using line paper, could something on it still be considered great?
Oh yeah, that's totally true. But it just so happens, like I'm just saying, it just so happens a lot of bad art I've seen has been done on line paper. But I've also seen a lot of very good art on line paper.
Right. So the point out of that is there is there can be good things regardless of the materials used.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at historically speaking, materials, art materials, and everything else, there was the movement, particularly in painting, that came around was a lot of people were like Renaissance artists. Early Renaissance, they were using tempera, egg tempera, and that was sort of considered the real type of painting. And towards late Renaissance era, oil paints started to come about, and oil paints were considered some like less of a medium. Like, oh, that's oil paints. That's the new fancy thing. If you're a real artist, if you use egg tempera, and the same thing happened in the. I'm not sure when acrylics actually came about. I think acrylics are technically 20th century. They might be a little earlier though. And then everyone said the same thing. Oh, if you're using acrylics, you're not using the real paint. You should be using oils and everything else. But when it comes to what you can consider good, I mean, it's not about the materials so much as it is about the subject matter. It's about uh, a lot of this upcoming year. I'm going to be talking about composition, and so it's like the materials don't dictate composition. The idea that it's still there is more or less still there. And you can't take that away. But when you make something like, oh, well, that's bad art, it's like it's not about the materials, it's about how well does it stack up in terms of composition, in terms of like the basics of art. It's like it's bad art because it doesn't hold to these principles, rather than just saying, oh, it's not my style or it's not the material that I like. It's like that's really the core of what good art is, and how we can define that in such a way. Any thoughts?
Um, I generally agree with that. I'm just a little dazed right now. I'm sorry. I'm totally fine, but I'm just like,
Fine. Dazed and confused.
a little. In my defense, I don't know art history that well, so that's why I'm a little quieter tonight.
That's all right. I don't mind taking lead. I am kind of getting some ideas out in the process and everything like that. I've kind of been putting this show off for a while, a little bit, but I think, and again, we're still sort of just touching on a lot of the basics of all of this stuff. So when we talk about the idea of good art and art history in particular, most people just start thinking about, oh, old paintings, the old masters, whether they be, like if you're a landscape painter like I am, you look at like the Hudson River School of painters in the 1800s. If you're into portraits, you're probably looking at people like Rembrandt or the Renaissance artists like Van Gogh and Da Vinci and Raphael. Um, if you're into if you're into architecture, sort of like that golden age of architecture, whether you're looking at uh, ancient Roman and Greek architecture, you're looking at Gothic architecture from the post-Renaissance era. If you're looking at sort of this postmodern architecture with minimalism and everything else, you have something. You have artists that came before you that you either look up to or can say these are examples of people that did it right. Um, and so from that, you get the idea of learning from masters and doing master studies, which can be huge to understand just creating something that is both a reflection of the old with enough new ideas that it still becomes interesting. Let's look at my sheet. Getting lost again, as usual. So you think, okay, I'm going to do a master study, but what's the point? A lot of people are like, I don't like doing this. I don't either like copying somebody else's work or whatever they happen to be doing really. And it's like I just there's I think a nasty stigma that a lot of ours approach master studies with, that it's somehow it's just like, oh, it's just not for me. It's not the thing I'm going to do. but it is just such a vitally important technique to use when learning. Ah! Oh god, that's bad. I
Huh?
got a big, giant green spot in the middle of my sky. Oh, jeez.
Oh wow. I
it
was
got, it got it got on my hand and
I was
wow.
listening, I promise, but I was like also going through my DA and cleaning it out.
I don't like this. I don't like this. This isn't good enough.
I don't know who you are, but I don't like your fan fiction, X.
Uh, but where was I?
Um, you were saying something about master studies?
Yes. So it's like, okay, why would I want to do a master study? What makes it worth worth your time and worth everything else? Um, and you think, all right, I it's so I guess the big question is, what can you learn from a master study? I did one in high school of I don't remember I remember I know the painting when I look at it. I think it may have been an Albert Bierstadt painting, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. Um, but it was this open landscape from somewhere in like one of the big national parks out west, and there's like a waterfall and a deer and a big lake and some mountains, and I did sort of a section of it. I didn't do the entire thing, but in the whole idea of that process and doing the painting, I learned so much about color and value that I would have never learned in like 6 months on my own. So I mean, you study something, you do a master study, and you can do them particular. I've seen people who do digital ones where they take a famous painting and just drop the color out and play with value and just do like black and white and make it a value study. You could do a big compositional study. I actually do this with some contemporary digital artists. I'm doing. Let's see if I can find a good little one here in my sketchbook. But I'll do like I'll also grab like a digital piece and I'll do a compositional study. Here's one. This was a quick compositional study, both form and value, a little bit there that I did. When did I do this? This was 11/21. Yeah. So end of November. I don't know what 11 is now. End of November that I did that, and this is like one as well, but it didn't turn out as well. But again, they're studies of other artists that help you learn uh, and do more of the artwork that you want to do just by learning what they did. And as you imitate their work, you start to understand technique and as well as other parts of the fundamentals like lighting and composition and everything else. So check over in the comments here. We got 5 viewers with us this evening. And
Yay.
hey, Yasmin is in the comments. You should get in here. I'll see if we can't drop you an invite out.
I'm not seeing comments on my end. That's weird. What was I gonna say again? Oh, can I just say one thing real fast? It's kind of a little off topic. Well, very off topic.
Okay.
Happy winter solstice, everyone!
Could be had to be weird. You couldn't just say first day of winter.
It literally is called the winter solstice, though.
I know what it is.
Back to topic.
All right. Send out you a invite to Yasmin if you want to jump in. Can always use another voice in with these live shows.
A more
Not
professional voice than mine.
that, not
Especially for
that your
tonight.
voice is bad. I'm just saying.
Well, I would prefer her voice, her input, because she knows more about this than I do. Probably.
Probably. Oh.
More
I
than
hear
likely,
that.
because like you
You
guys actually have studied art. I'm just like, hey, I'm applying this pretty color to this paper.
see, you can take some of the advice I have to give tonight and actually apply it to some of your own practices.
I was taking your advice and try to apply it.
Yay! All right. So, when you copy, I was just saying, you copy someone else's work to understand how they did it, and you learn so much of it in the process. Now, in some ways, this may sound like I don't know, and is you really copy to learn, and it's like, well, that's if you think about it, if you're somebody that drew at a very early age, then you drew to copy. Um, I was drawing. I remember drawing video game characters when I was a kid. I loved it. I loved
I
doing
was
little
continue.
things, and I
Go
was
after.
pretending to be Bob Ross and doing little landscapes and things. We so much of our art is based on what we learned just by copying, because it teaches you so much more in the long run. It's a little bit more subconscious sometimes, but it really goes a long way to teaching you about your art and about how you can, because like everyone learns differently, and just because you heard somebody say something doesn't mean you know how to do it. It's like as soon as you try it for yourself, like I'm going to try to do my art the way this artist does, and you do that for a while, and you kind of change and adapt it to how you work. However, that doesn't change. Excuse me. It doesn't change the idea that you are still learning from them, whether they're like a famous painter or just one of your own contemporaries. Uh, and it doesn't matter the level either. You can learn from complete beginners, you can learn from professional, and you shouldn't limit yourself to who you can learn from, because that the only thing that does is limit you as an artist.
I agree. I was gonna say that a lot of artists, especially in these days, they start out as producing primarily fan art, which technically is what you're saying in
Oh
the
yeah,
mind
absolutely.
study. And that's how I started art. I would do fan art of The Legend of Zelda and Dot Hack Sign. And through doing fan art of anime, I got the gist of the way the human body is and started moving on to realism a few years ago.
Yay.
Still working on it.
Well, that's fine. I mean, it's the same thing. Like the thing is, there's a lot of hate on fan art, especially I think lately. Um, and it's very strange to me, that idea of it's fan art, so it's either not as good or you're not original because you're doing fan art, and that's an extraordinarily sad concept, to think that you are less original because you're doing fan art. In aside from fan art being um, just I'm trying to think how to put this. It's pretty much the most. It's like you're sharing in how much you love a thing. So like a franchise, or like a video game character. So you love the franchise. So you're showing how much you love that through with fan art. But at the same time, whether you're doing something more like I do, I kind of tend to just look for like an official art image and copy that to start to learn a little bit about line work and value through that whenever I do a fan artwork of my own. But or if you're somebody who can take a character and put it in whatever strange or awkward scenario you want to put it in, that is just an incredible use of skill and being able to draw in another style that can be great for utilizing. You can utilize that skill later in life, especially if you want to get into like professional concept art, or you want to be a character designer or something like that, because you can very easily just like jump from those experiences. Like, oh, I remember doing a fan art piece about this. I can draw from that experience and then take my art further that way.
Hmm. I agree. Hang on one second.
Hanging on by a thread. not really by a thread. That actually sounds kind of terrible that way. So, while he's gone, we should talk crap about him. I say we, like there's more than one of us here. So, those of you that are just joining in, this is the Box July 8 and why art history matters. Talking about art history, the importance of it for both beginning artists as well as professionals, that it's important to both study art history and learn from it. If you'd like to join in on the conversation over on the YouTube watch page, if you go to the channel, and if you're not already watching there, there's a live chat right next to the video. You can join in on the conversation there and say hi to your fellow viewers, I guess. So so yes, there's finally a live chat. Oh, you've got to be kidding me! Got another spot on the canvas.
It's a sign. Oh, so in 15 to 30 minutes, I'm gonna have a juicy bacon cheeseburger coming to my house. So if I leave, that's the reason.
Okay, that would be an acceptable reason.
So everybody loves cheeseburgers. Why do you think those cats want them?
Cats? What?
Yep. You know how in the memes the cat's like, I can has cheeseburger?
Oh. Okay. And now I gotta fix this because I let this dry. And I got a big black spot on the middle of the sky.
It's
if
a
I get
planet?
it. No, it's a line. I might be able to turn it into a bird or something, but.
No such things as mistakes, happy accidents.
No, this is a pretty big mistake.
Damn it!
Sorry. Something up here. This isn't real friendly. Because I know I'm going to have trouble making that good sky color again if I do. I'm usually pretty good with knowing my colors and being able to replicate stuff, but this is it's already a lot of blended color together, so.
What were you saying before, before the second accident?
Copying and how much it helps you in fan art.
It does help, and I don't necessarily do fan art anymore, but I do religious art still, and looking at pictures of mainly Mary, because I enjoy drawing and painting her a lot. It is kind of copying and learning how to improve my style. Like one time on retreat, I did a very quick drawing of her with a pen, of all things, because I forgot to bring a gift for my prayer buddy, and that ended up being the gift.
Hey, it works.
It works, and it actually came up very pretty according to everyone in the room, so.
No, they were just being nice. No, I don't want to be that guy. It crushes your hopes and dreams.
What do you mean I can't be a scientist because I'm bad at art?
What? None of that made any sense. Anyway.
Hopes and dreams.
All right, so back to topic. So, where was that? One of the when you're copying, when you're kind of playing with this, it's not just. I mean, you're going to subconsciously make and take in stuff like that. But if you are more conscious about what you're doing while you're working, it can also be a huge boost, both in your confidence and in your skill set. Like every single line you do, every pencil stroke, every brush stroke, whatever it is, it's like you're studying, like, okay, how do I do this? How do I make that, look like, the thing that I want it to? How do I make it? How did they do it? Try and figure out how they did it. And think, oh, wait, maybe I'll try it this way. And it, in a way, it sort of teaches you to be a little more creative. Because, like, okay, this way didn't work. Which way will work? I gotta remember that I'm also recording a painting process video too, so I gotta get some clips here and there as I'm working, because I know I'll forget about that. Then there will be a huge gap in the video whenever it comes out. Actually, depending on when I finish this, it might come out the first. I don't know, whatever the first Friday in January is. It'll probably be then. But anyway, so when you learn from the masters, you're understanding both style and technique, and you think, oh, this might help me get better. Actually, it will always help you get better. It's not of maybe this will work. No, it's going to work. So if you're looking for sort of a foolproof method, take a look at some of your favorite, famous painters. And if you don't have any famous painters, go to a museum. If you don't live close enough to a museum, I think Google has a virtual museum
They do?
database. Yeah, there's I can't remember what it's called, but you can probably search for it. And they took the same camera that they use for the street view stuff into museums. And so you can basically take a virtual walking guided tour of everything from like the Museum of Modern Art in New York City to hell, I don't even know what all of them are, but yeah, a lot of the best museums in the world, you can take these virtual tours of them. So yeah, it's definitely worth checking out if you can't get to a museum where you live, or if you do it in addition to that, I definitely recommend checking that out in general. So, moving on. um, so, you think, okay, master studies and things and arts history and whatever. Maybe you just don't like history, and there are many people who just don't like studying history.
I'm one of
But
them.
unfortunately for you, I suppose, I have a bit of a passive hobby in history. I like learning about certain things. Like when I go after something historical, I will go after it to a T. But I won't just constantly be looking at history and things like that. So when it's relative to me, then I will go in and start learning about things. And I had a couple art history classes, both in high school and in college, that kind of helped foster this, desire, the inherent desire that I have for art, in terms of how to see that, and just go, wow, look at that, that's awesome, and be able to understand both modern art as well as art from various points throughout history. So if you don't look back at what art has come before you, this is sort of back to our first topic. You don't know what makes art good. You don't. Like, if you don't know throughout the course of history what other people and communities of people and societies have deemed to be this is an amazing piece of art, you're not going to know what standards to shoot for in your own work. And it's going to cause this thing. It's like, well, then you get into this sort of bad habit of, well, it's my work, so it's good. And it's like, well, okay, it's nice to be confident in what you do, but just because you made something, just because you're proud of it, doesn't make it good by a larger standpoint. And to that same degree, it's like, you don't want to say that to hurt someone's feelings or anything like that. But if you don't have a sort of a bar to measure your art from, at least on a healthy basis, I mean, that can very easily be taken to an unhealthy place of you're constantly trying to measure up to artists that are, years of work ahead of you. But at the same time, if you don't have that standard, you won't know how to improve. You won't know how to say, I want to take my art further. It's like, well, how do you do that? It's like, what do you want to compare it to take it further? And so having, you know, having to look back to different artists throughout art history and analyzing their work in terms of the basic elements and principles of design, then you can start to see, hey, that's why this is considered good. Or, oh, look, they did that really well. Maybe I should try and strive for that in my own work. And if you don't, and this is true for any kind of history, if you don't study art history, then you're not studying any kind of history. You lose out on important, major parts of culture and everything else. And hey, one of you is in the comments. Welcome, welcome.
How come you get to see the comments and I don't? Am I the
Where
only
are you?
person?
Where are you looking?
On a YouTube page and on the sidebar, but it's not showing me.
I'll refresh the page then. Maybe it didn't go live for you. Um, so yeah, I lost my train of thought. Thanks, Juanita.
Yeah, it's
Feeding a
not showing me
sewer
on
right
the.
there.
Yeah,
Huh.
I guess my. Oh, hey, there it go. There it is.
There you go. So yeah, you if you don't, there's so much in art besides just that's a painting. It can teach us a lot about the history of a place, about a period of time and a specific an event of people and things like that. There's older commissioned art where it was this piece was uh, painted on these people's wedding day and they wanted something to remember it by, or this was a couple pieces that I have in mind is down at the Pittsburgh Museum where I live. There's a little sub gallery in the museum specific to pieces related to the city. And there was, I think, in a lot of these like the industrialization area, there were a lot of cities that had like big fires that destroyed like half the city. And there was one in Pittsburgh, and there's a couple of paintings in the museum. I think last time I was there, I think they were, I think, both in storage, which was unfortunate. But it is a capturing of that point in time. There was one that was like middle of the day, and there was one that was like sunset. So more of the city was there, and the other paintings, some of the city was had like burned more. So you have these artists who are capturing an event in history through their art, and so it's and it because it's done through a painting, because it's done through art, it breaks down a language barrier. We can look at art um, from other cultures without understanding the language and know what's going on. And so there's just such a huge um, impact that art has, both in its own history as well as the history of food and art and culture and people and everything else. Like it's just so well integrated that if you're studying art history, you're also studying the history of everything else.
I agree.
You're just like a Tinkerbell up in the corner. I agree. Like you're flirting,
Jay,
or
listen,
yeah. I was gonna say.
Navi.
There you go. Be be the voice of Navi in the corner. Nerd humor.
And then
Anyway,
I'll send you the T-shirt that has Navi in front of the engraved that grave, and she's saying, "Shoulda listened."
that's funny and terrible. So, in this same sense of understanding art in terms of history, in terms of uh, where it's where it's been relevant and how we've understood it, I have a couple of examples here. So, like, okay, hold on, let me read this thing. I wrote it this afternoon. I don't know what it says. That's not a complete thought. I wrote that without thinking and reviewing it. So, a lot of people will say, I don't understand modern art, or I hate modern art. It doesn't mean anything. It's just drab, meaningless crap. There are even professional artists that will say this, and it bothers me, but at the same time, I understand where they're coming from. And part of it is not, again, not studying art history, not knowing more about the artists that came, before you and before whatever's happening now. Um, I think a great place to start on this is ancient Egyptian art. This is something that I think I learned in my college art history class. And when you think about the ancient Egyptians and the way there are, you're looking at that very flat, um, sort of jagged arms, like doing this or whatever, and they're like this, and they're very square looking and flat with the eye on the side. And for a long time, historians were like, oh, and they like looked the whole of art in like whatever the couple centuries and maybe a couple thousand. Well, I don't know how long the sort of ancient Egyptian era lasted. I think it was a couple thousand years, at least. And throughout the course of that time, one thing that they noticed is that the art never evolved. It never changed. It was always the same types of images, the same square, flat images. And there was a discovery, I think it was the mid-2000s or so, that I could be wrong on the date there. I'm just guessing, really. But they uncovered a tomb or a tomb that wasn't finished, so it was sort of an in progress tomb. And one thing that they found is that it had some of the art on the wall that was standard to Egyptian culture, and what they saw was the outline of a grid. So there was these half-completed. Let me get the piece of paper here. There were half-completed, funny people with the heads and the arms kind of going up and down, like that. And they're very stiff
The
legs.
hieroglyphics?
Right. Not just the hieroglyphics, because the hieroglyphics were like the symbols that kind of like did this, and then they had little whatever they were. But the people, and then they had like the sideways eye, and they were like one eye like this. And it was a very flat image. But what they saw is that underneath this half-completed, painting was a grid system. So what looks like, oh, this type of art never evolved, not that it didn't evolve, is that they had a standard. Anything created on our, walls and part of our, the big the decorative art basically had to be part of this style and existed because of the grid system. So the idea of, oh, this art didn't ever evolve, it's not that it didn't evolve, it's that it specifically was, attuned to look like the way that it was. So, that's just, like it's just like one look. It's like, oh, they basically dictated the style that artists would use for centuries, which sounds terrible, but at the same time, it's extraordinarily impressive to look back and see that and just be like, whoa. They had a standard to it that they held their art to, the same way that we have standards that go back as long as people have been making art, basically, to say these are the standards of what make a piece of art good.
Mm-hmm.
Are you there?
I'm here. I'm just listening because I'm probably going to be just saying I agree throughout the whole thing. So I am, and audience, you should listen to him too.
So yeah. So you think, okay, that happened in the Egyptian era. One was like whoop-de-doo, So
Actually, I have a thought on that because literally I did not know that they had a standard for their art. I just figured that and I've been kind of doing this because I'm not that good at history. History is very vague to me, but I was under the impression that prior to written language, well, like fully competent written on what's it called again? Written on paper and canvas, that if you had something to tell, it was done through art, and that most art was used as storytelling. So
yeah.
that's why I originally thought, oh, it was just hieroglyphics this whole damn time.
No, I mean there is a somewhat more modern use for art in ways that hasn't existed prior to about, oh man, I would say like the 1700s maybe, and it's the idea of art for art's sake. Like artists throughout history, they did their things, but it was always like basically what we'd consider now as commissioned work. It was our client-based work or whatever, they're doing it as a political message or as a whatever message or as you know storytelling medium, whatever. But it wasn't until you start getting like the area of the revolutions, like French revolutions and everything else. The French Revolution is actually a great example of this because they're telling stories with their art, but nobody's like commissioning them to do it. Nobody's like, I want to commission a portrait for you during this period in history, you know, and it. I mean, I can't pinpoint it. I think that's the first time it's been the most noticeable. But at the same time, artists throughout all history have looked at their surroundings and seen the parts of their surroundings and the culture and have reflected that in their work. A great example of this is the rise of rise of industrialization in the Art Deco movement. I don't know if you actually know about Art Deco at all yourself.
I probably do, but I'm like many conversations between us, didn't know it had an actual name.
Right. Okay, so the best example of Art Deco that people like bringing up a lot is the Chrysler Building in New York City. The Chrysler Building, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, so here we go again with my example. See, now I gotta start the camera and I gotta pause that. Sorry. So the Chrysler Building in New York City was designed by this guy named, I believe it was Frank Lloyd Wright. He also did a rather famous house around my area called Falling Water, which is a house built on top of basically a waterfall. It's a stream and a little thing. It's not a big waterfall, but that entire movement was. So anyway, the Chrysler Building. So the Chrysler Building just is the standard skyscraper, but at the top it has these sort of arches, and then comes up to a point, like so. And then it's kind of these little things in it, like that.
My cheeseburger's here, so I'm gonna have to go for a bit.
All right.
All right.
Anyway, I'll keep talking.
Thanks
for joining. Yes, I'll keep talking. Thanks for joining in. And that was Lucas, aka Apology89, here on YouTube. Thanks. Oh, he just muted. I thought he was completely leaving. Anyway, so the Chrysler Building, as sort of crudely illustrated by me here, was designed at a point in time where the automobile was just sort of coming out. And so the top of the Chrysler Building with the arches was actually inspired by wheels, and inspired by wheels in production lines in particular. So when, again, really hoping I'm getting this right, when Frank Lloyd Wright designed the Chrysler Building, he wanted to create a building that reflected that rise in that kind of era. I think for a brief period of time, it was actually the tallest. It may have been the tallest building in New York for, like, I don't know, 6 months or a year or something, whenever it was built. It was another one of those ones where they're pushing the limits. They're pushing the limits of technology and everything else in their time. And you have movements in art, particularly architecture at that time, that were reflecting both a modern feel, an industrialized feel, as well as something that is somewhat more of a minimalistic idea. And when minimalism sort of rose in between, I think it's like the 50s to the 70s, when minimalism and abstract art became more of a thing. This is like the Jackson Pollock era, like postmodernism. You're looking at something that at its core is reflecting the society around it. There's all this change, all this fast-paced movement, so you have artists creating something that's simple, or that reflects this sort of more solitary environment, or someone like Jackson Pollock who's doing work that's very crazy and energetic because everything around you is becoming crazy and energetic. With that, I mean, there's such a core understanding of culture and history that goes along with studying art history. And when you start to realize that, you start to look at and like as an artist yourself, how your work reflects your surroundings, and how everything else that you do kind of comes back together in that sense. So I'm going to work on this painting again for a little bit. I keep getting distracted. I'm like, I really should keep working on this, and then I'm not. So I got to mix up another batch of color. Get another palette out here. And scraper. So if you're just joining us this evening, we're talking about art history and how important it is to study, both for artists as well as just really anybody, to understand art history in terms of the work that you create and the work that you see. So you talk about art history, you talk about what makes art good, in terms of what has come before us, and what the kind of work that we've seen throughout history as what a society has called good. This piece of art is good. Well, why is it good? Well, you can compare it back to the old masters. You can compare it back to whatever else. And I'm actually gonna drop my lower thirds off because you guys know who I am at this point. I don't need to keep it on all night. There we are. So, art history. My water bottle down here? No, of course not. Right when I need a drink, I don't need it. Ah, jeez. So, let's get up to my next point. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go get a little bit of water because I'm absolutely parched. And I swear I had some water down here, but apparently I don't. Find something I can draw on here. Write on whatever. Let's see. Here we go. Hopefully that'll be legible with my giant Sharpie. Okay. There we are. Back in a minute as I go and get something to drink. Okay, that was probably less than a minute, but that's okay. I got my water down here now, which I was in desperate need of. So, back to topics. Art history, why it's important. We've already talked about what makes art good. We talked about learning from the masters and paying attention to if you're copying someone else's work in a master study or doing fan art, on how much that can teach you. We talked about looking back through art history, what happens when we don't look back. We were just talking about that, about how it's so much about understanding an artist and their environment, and how artists sort of made artwork that reflected their environment. And if you don't look back at that, you're just left with nothing to base your work on. You don't have anyone to say, oh, I can go back and hey, that's how that person did it. That's what inspired them. Maybe I can use some of that creative energy from artists long past, and that's what they did. I should try and do something like that too. So, in order to understand art history, you also have to understand. Wait, hold on a second. What does this say? uh, so, if you understand art history, and I'm sort of starting to touch on this as well, uh, when you when you understand art history, you start to understand contemporary art and the movements in contemporary art and why, you know, uh, like how things that exist now um, in terms of art, and you think, okay, contemporary art. Well, modern art, right? No, technically, modern art and contemporary art are not actually the same thing. Um, Modern art refers to an era between the 40s to like the 70s. And then there's postmodernism, which was a whole other thing, and I didn't write all this stuff down right now, but you can check this stuff out on your own time. But when you talk about art that's happening now, we want to use the term contemporary. So it's like, okay, something like minimalism. Oh wait, I hold on a second. I talked about all this already. The whole minimalism and reflection of society. Hold on a second. Let me figure out where I'm at. I'm sorry. Uh, but one of the things that's sort of an issue with minimalism is that it creates a sort of uh, intellectually visual blindness. So you're like, oh, you're blind, you can't see what I'm talking about, sort of thing. Um, there are subtle complexities that exist throughout the other movements in art history that a lot of modern art movements, I guess here I am saying modern contemporary art movements, just don't have. You can say, oh, this type of art is, nice and it looks to things, but it might be lacking, actual composition. It might be lacking. Oh, there's a lot of stuff I want to get into. There's this coming up in 2015. I'm going to be doing a huge video series on the principles of design. I talked about the elements of design this past year here, um, uh, with line and shape and value and color and texture, and with all of those things. Like those are the building blocks to this. But to take that further, you're looking at compositional unity, you're looking at balance, you're looking at movement in pieces. And when you look at a lot of minimalism in contemporary art, you're finding things that completely don't have that. And it's a different type of composition, but it doesn't make it any less valid as long as it's done in the spirit of the art that's come before us. You can always challenge these new ideas, but if you take them too far, you're not necessarily ahead of your time. You could also be ignoring something that's principle and unity into what makes art, and what has sort of agreed upon as art as being, just that good. We've kind of, I think, in a lot of ways. Now, this is my opinion. I've kind of talked a lot about stuff all night here with. Just with art history and the movements and why they're important. But when it comes to when it comes to the idea of what kind of art are we approaching at this point, I think we're sort of returning to this contemporary renaissance of creating things that are are closer to being, great compositions. A lot of the young artists now are looking to things like concept art and character design and everything else. And while that is sort of a marketable type of art and something that is kind of pushed towards sort of the commercial aspects of art. Where did my Prussian blue go? There it is. Losing my colors. In a lot of ways, I kind of feel like we're slowly moving towards this revitalization of more complex imagery. You have, greater ideas. You have artists that are telling stories not because somebody else told them to tell a story, because they're telling the stories that they want to tell. And I know with my own work, because I take a lot of my influence from digital painters, people who do environmental work digitally, but I really want to bring that back to the idea of traditional art media, taking what's been great about the old masters and anyone who did. My go-to era in art history is 18th and 19th century realism, particularly the artists who did landscapes, because what they were able to achieve and create with their work is something that is just, to me, just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you can study realism, you can get to do that kind of stuff, but the types of just like epicness that they create and have created with their works is something that's truly very inspiring to me. And my goals in general are to move, I guess, both the artists that are learning from here on the channel, as well as artists around the world, to kind of come together and look to the older ideas of what makes art great, and moving that further in sort of this creative renaissance of back to the old ways, but with new and contemporary ideas, if that makes sense. Hopefully, I'm not just rambling now. If I am, feel free to tell me over in the comments. But yeah, it's so much of it is just based on this, like, I think for just really coming out of the idea of minimalism. At least I hope we are in terms of art. I'm seeing more artists, especially in the city, making things that definitely reflect the old ways and understanding both art history and like local history and everything else. And I think that's really, really important to understand in making art today. And especially if you're somebody who wants to be part of that movement, if you want to be a visual artist, whether you're somebody who's working for a studio or doing freelance work, I think it's really important to have a vision of where you want to take your art, as well as take the art of those who are learning from you. So, I think that just about wraps up my topics for tonight. If there's anyone out there watching I keep saying I'm going to go back to this painting, and I haven't been going back to this painting. I'm going to start painting now. So I'm probably going to work for another 10-15 minutes here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw those in the comments. Any questions regarding just art history, I will do the best to my ability. If not, I'll reference you out to check an article or something out elsewhere. Or if you have any questions about traditional media and art in general, I'm here to answer your questions, basically. So I'm gonna keep on mixing up some paint and hopefully get a few questions in from you guys. If not, also, yeah, anything I've said tonight, do you guys have opinions on? Share those in the comments. I really, I want to see your opinions on art history and see exactly, just your thoughts. Like, how do you use, the ideas from art history in your work, or do you, or are you finding this new and you're gonna try it in your own work for the first time or whatever? So. Yeah. Want to get this red a little. Just kind of want to make this a little bit pink for my rocks. Well, first set of rocks anyway. I should specify. And I gotta flip the camera back on so I can get some video footage. Oh, look at that! I've already made my stuff for my new camera completely dirty. Battle scars and such. I don't want to do this one yet. I'll wait a minute. But so maybe I said something tonight that inspired you or sparked you to think about something differently, and I really hope that's the case. That's kind of what I hope to do with these live shows is just spark an interesting conversation and kind of get the ideas flowing beyond just the canvas. Let's talk about art and in the broader sense. Um, Additionally, though, I actually want to bring up that I'm going to be throwing a new post up to my blog on the website cinderblockstudios.com/blog. Um, it's going to be putting a new post up tomorrow, probably tomorrow morning, at some point. And the post is about the problem with artistic relativism. And the idea of artistic relativism? That's it, relativism. The problem with it is that this idea of sort of what I talked about in my previous post of not everything is art, but it's the idea of I'm going to define what art is for myself. But the problem is when you do that, you start to get into a bit of a problem where no artist is going to be able to create something that fits into everybody's own little box. So when you start defining art simply based on whatever you want it to be, you start to get into trouble a little bit. And it's a fairly long post, but you guys can check that out. Check that out tomorrow when it hits the blog. So look forward to that. So those of you watching tonight, there was something I was going to say. I've already forgotten. Something about those of you watching tonight, but I don't know what it was now. Yeah. I think a lot of what I wanted to talk about tonight, I kind of already said it in this blog post that I wrote, and it'll be there tomorrow. Again, it'll be there tomorrow. But I feel like I got out a lot of good ideas already. Mainly, I just wanted to have a live show for you guys, because it's been like 3 months since my last live show, and that is just entirely too long. So, yeah. So I think I'm gonna keep painting for a little bit. Basically for myself. When I'm time coding this hangout tomorrow, or this live show tomorrow, technically it's both. Um, when I put the time codes up in the description box tomorrow, this will be sort of the key point for me when I say, okay, now you're going to put a little. There will be a time code that says, now I'm going to paint for 20 minutes or whatever. So, yeah. But again, Juanita or Yasmin, if you guys are still watching and want to jump in, by all means, and also let me know if you need an invite. I'm pretty sure I sent them out to everybody, but in case you do need one, feel free to let me know and say you didn't get one. So where am I at? Here, make sure I'm focused. Roughly. It's the good thing and bad thing about the new camera is I gotta make sure all my settings are good to go before I hit record. Alright. So water this down a little bit. So I have an underlying texture for all this stuff that I made with some golden light molding paste. I use that in my rocks all the time. And so I'd be basically able to dry brush, layer over top, and get this really great texture. And it's and I talked about this, I think, previously throughout the course of the year about difference between actual texture and perceived texture. And actual texture being things you could physically feel either on the canvas or whether you're like denting paper with like a metal stylus for drawing or something like that. But, you know, that stuff. get a sort of a glowish, got sort of this burnt orange color that I'm going to use as my main highlight. So now that sort of that section's done, we can flip, and I want to get that section here as well. So you just get that little bit. It's like I want it to be a different color than the sand, but it still needs to be enough of a difference, or not enough of a difference. Like it's enough of a difference that it doesn't look like the sand, but it's still, got that nice texture, which it will anyway. But nice texture on the rocks and everything. Don't want to overdo it. Just give it a little bit of extra light. That looks pretty good. A little more white, I think. Yeah, it looks great. I'm feeling pretty good about this piece. So far, generally, I would say genuinely, but generally pretty happy with this. Of course, I'm genuinely happy. Wouldn't want to be genuinely unhappy. That would just be mean. I'm genuinely unhappy with this painting. Bleh. So, here's that. It's feeling good. And this is what I love about using the molding paste as a base, is you get this just really great with the texture. But the texture is good. You could do the texture for rocks, or you can do the texture for wood, depending on how you use it. And it's one of the things I just really love about it. I might do a more in-depth tutorial after the new year with this stuff. I had a little quick tip, I think, about it, but not quite to the extent that I'm using it here. So yeah. So I think I'm going to wrap up the live show for tonight. Thanks everyone for joining in. Well, thanks Lucas for joining in. He's still, I guess, eating a burger at this point. But yeah, so upcoming stuff on the channel before I forget. There's some outtakes coming up. There's a really short section of stuff that didn't make it this year. I think for Friday. I think this week we're getting bloopers in that. Next week is the 2015 trailer that comes out New Year's Eve. And then, of course, after the new year, we start doing really great stuff. I've got, I think, already 5 or 6 videos finished for the new year already, plus another like 5 or 6 to film. So, look forward to that in the upcoming weeks. For more about my art, you can check out my website, cinderblockstudios.com.
I'm back.
You're back, and I'm closing the show. So wrapping things up, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Lucas, if you want to say something before you go, again, thanks to Lucas, aka Apology89, for joining me for tonight's live show.
Happy holidays for the regular people and for everyone else. Merry Christmas.
I'll say
Take it
Merry
and like
Christmas.
it.
I'll say Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm not saying Happy Holidays because that's bullshit. So, thanks.
For all the seculars, happy holidays. For everyone else, Merry Christmas.
No, Merry Christmas for everyone anyway. Because it doesn't matter. Because it's a greeting. Anyway, Merry Christmas to all of you guys. I hope you have a great week. And this has been from TMC Films and Cinderblock Studios. See you guys next time. Where is the mouse? There it is.